Back to another Swift tutorial. Today we're going to be taking a look at how we can create a collection view. And if you're not familiar, a collection view is a grid of cells, so similar to a table view, but instead of having rows of cells that go vertically down, a collection view can be rows and columns. So if you've used the Instagram app before, when you go to your profile and you see a grid of your pictures, they're using a collection view. And I grabbed this picture from Google Images, and we're going to show this picture in our collection view. And of course, in each cell, we don't only have to show an image, we can show text or anything else actually. Anything you can imagine, you can show. So let's get started by firing up Xcode like we usually do. Let's create a new project. We're going to stick with a single view application. We're going to call this, let's call this collection view and make our life easy. Make sure we're in Swift, save it wherever you'd like. We'll put it on our desktop. And let's say Command R to quickly run this in the simulator so we can have something to work with. While it's building, let's expand this window to give ourselves some more room to work with. And it just built. If we go to our simulator, we'll see it'll pop up in just a second here. So what I want you to start by doing is go to your main storyboard, and we're gonna simply drag on a collection view and talk through a couple important things. So let's find a collection view here. Let's drag it on. Let's set the background color, or sorry, let's set the constraints of this first. Let's set the constraints of this to be 0, 0, 0, 0, like so. And if you notice, if I zoom in here, there is actually one little square cell right here. It's a little tough to notice, but that is a prototype cell. And I'm supposed to color on my screen. I don't know if that shows up in the video actually, but this is a prototype cell. And similar to table view cells, we can specify template cells that we can reuse over and over in the actual collection. That way we don't need to create a new object, and it keeps the performance of our application efficient. And what I mean by that is when you scroll down the grid really fast, it's not choppy and it's very like buttery smooth. And the reason is it's because it's using the same cell over and over, but just swapping out the data. So instead of using this cell in here, we're going to create our cell in a separate file. But first and foremost, let's go to our view controller. And we're going to create an outlet to this collection view so we can reference it. And we're going to implement 3 protocols related to this collection view. So first, let's create an outlet. And it's a UICollectionView. And the 3 protocols that we're going to mention, or that we're going to rather implement, or that you should know about, are the UICollectionView delegate, data source, and flow layout delegate. So the first one is this delegate. The next one is data source. And the third one is so it's actually delegate flow layout. So let me explain what all of these have and why we need them all. So for the purposes of this video, we'll implement the delegate and data source, but I wanted to include this one because it's very important and it helps you customize your collection views look and feel quite a bit. So the delegate, similar to a table view delegate, helps you pick up interactions with the cells. So the function that we're going to focus on here is did select item. And this gets called whenever we tap on one of the cells in our collection view. So what we want to do first and foremost in here is deselect whatever we've selected at the given index path with an animation. And we're just going to print out something so we can see that we are actually coming in here once we select it. The data source, also similar to our to our table view, requires two functions. The first one is number of items, and this basically just tells us how many cells that we want to have in a given section. So we're just going to return, let's return some random number for now. And the next one is cell for item. And this actually returns a cell for the given item. You can see here the return value that it expects is a UICollectionView cell. And similar to the table view, we're going to dequeue a cell in here. So we do that by saying let cell equals collection view dequeue cell, and it wants an identifier, which we'll specify in a second. It wants an index path, and we can return the cell. So after we've done this, what we want to do is specify up here that our collection view outlet, we got this from right here. The delegate is self, as well as the data source is self. And before we go on, so this flow layout delegate thing that we have going on down here, this lets us specify in our actual collection view what is the margin and padding between each cell. So you can imagine, like on Instagram, the pictures and video cells are very flush next to each other. We can specify that in a custom layout, and that's what this layout is used for. Now, there are ways to create entirely custom layouts instead of using this flow layout that Apple provides us. So that's also important to keep in mind, but again, I just wanted to paint the picture that this does exist and it is pretty commonly used, but we'll go ahead and comment this out for now. Cool. That being said, what we want to do is create our cell, bring in the image that we have on our desktop here, and basically just run the app. So let's actually bring in this image by going to our assets. This is where we're going to hold all of our assets, right-clicking, new image set. Let's call it image, make our life simple. We can drag this guy in right here. And now we want to create a new cell with a given storyboard, which is a .xib file. We're going to right-click the folder, new file. We're going to click Cocoa Touch class. We want a subclass of a UICollectionView cell, and we're going to call this myCollectionView cell. We're going to check this box to create a nib file. I know it's xib, but people call it nib for whatever reason. And we're going to hit continue. And don't worry about the nib file yet. We're going to talk through it. So basically, this file and class is a custom implementation of a UICollectionView cell. And this .xib thing that we have going on, and let's actually expand this because we don't need the desktop anymore. This is basically, like you can see, a cell. And this is what we're going to use as our template in the collection view. So as we create more of these, it'll bring it in over and over again. But it creates the storyboard similar to or it creates this interface builder object similar to our storyboard where we can drag stuff on here and create outlets for them in our actual collection view cell. So we want to show an image in here. So what we're going to do is create an outlet, and it's going to be an image view. Cool. And what we're going to do in here is we're going to provide two functions, and this is kind of a styling way to do it. There's a couple ways to do it, but I recommend you do it this way. This is how it's done professionally, and it makes your life easier too in terms of understanding what we're going to do. The first one we're going to provide is a public function, and we're going to write this out, and that's going to be configure. And configure basically should take in whatever object or elements you want to configure with. So in this case, we want to set the image view's image. So I'm going to say configure with image, and we're going to say the image views.image, if I can spell image correctly today, equals image. And the reason we do this is when we are dequeuing our cell, we can just call this public function instead of having to access this directly. The other thing we want to have in here is a static function, and we're going to call it a nib, and that's going to return a UI nib. And basically, we want to register to our collection view this cell. In other words, we're telling the collection view, hey, we have this cell that we created, we want to use you. And to register it, you can register it one of two ways. One is via this nib thing, which is a reference to this .xib file. And the other is you can register it through the class name. If you're using the nib, I would recommend doing it this way. And the reason is because it keeps things clean. So we're going to say UI nib with name, or just name. Yeah, nib name. They recently renamed it. And we're going to provide a name in here, my collection view cell. Now we just pulled this from the same name as a file, but we're going to specify it in the xib file as well. And the bundle here, you can create this as nil. And I believe we need to add a exclamation mark because it's optional, like so. Actually, we don't. Interesting. Okay, my mistake. We don't need the exclamation mark. We don't need to force unwrap it. Lastly, what we need to do is come to our xib file, specify the identifier, drag in our image view, and connect the outlet. So if we click on this, you see we have this identifier thing here. We're going to throw that in there. We're going to come up here, drag on an image view, like so, and you can see that it's pretty big. So let's add some constraints to it, and let's make it 0, 0, 0, 0. And lastly, in here, let's right-click this and connect our image view outlet to our image view. Almost done. Now we can go to our view controller, and what we can do in here is we can say collection view register. Now we want to register a nib, like so, but there's two of them. So we want to register a nib for a cell. So the nib, the reason we added that nib function is we can do this dot nib, makes it clean. We don't have to do that UI nib stuff in here. And the identifier we can put in like so. You can actually put this on the class as well. So what I will often do too, and this is again just good practice, is you can do something like static let identifier equals that. And here what you can do is you can say this dot identifier. Whoops. Identifier. Like so. And the reason it's kind of neat to put this stuff in the actual cell is because if you want to use this nib and cell in multiple places, you're gonna have to write out all of that stuff in every place you use it. So it just makes your life easier to keep it abstracted into the class itself and use it through static access. If you're not familiar with static access, I encourage you to leave a comment. I can explain it. I also have other Swift videos on it. And let's see, what else do we need? Okay, so here we want to actually configure our cell with that function we added. So we did let cell DQ, let cell is collection view DQ. We want to DQ this cell as this cell, and we want to specify that the identifier again in here is identifier. And the very last thing is cell.configure with let's build it because it's not giving me autocomplete, which is slightly annoying. If you ever don't get autocomplete, you can just build and Xcode should start behaving again. Like so. So we have configure with, and it wants a UI image because that's what we said. So we're going to do UI image with a name, and we gave it the name of image in our assets. And like so, we should be good to go. And this requires a force unwrap because that image might be nil, but we know it's called image because we've specified it. Let's just double check it by going to our assets. We have this image here. This is what should show up in our cell. And with that being said, I think we are done. Let's run it and then we'll review everything real fast in case I forgot to explain something. So we just crashed. Let's see why we crashed. We crashed because fatal error unexpectedly found nil while unwrapping optional. Okay, well the optional value in here, let's see, we have nib and we have the identifier. So what we forgot to do is connect this collection view outlet. That's my hunch. So let's go to our main.storyboard. Let's open up this. Let's right click on the view controller. And like I thought, we haven't connected this collection view outlet. So Xcode doesn't know that it exists. So let's connect it here. Let's go back to our view controller and let's give it one more run. Cool. So our picture is obnoxiously big, but yeah, we basically get our collection view. And what you'll notice is our collection view looks more so like a table view. And let's actually expand this and let's tap on a cell first, actually, before I explain that. When we tap on it, we get this print statement that we added in this delegate function. But let's actually, so I know I said we weren't going to use this in this video, but let's actually make this, ignore my antivirus pop-up. Let's make our cell size a little custom and let's make it smaller so we can have multiple rows and columns. And the way we do that is by working with the collection view layout. So we're going to say collection view dot layout let's see, wow, okay, so it's collection view layout. So you can specify this entire layout in code. The other thing you can do is also just reference the current one. And I believe this is a settable property. So let's set this to layout and we're gonna create this up here. We'll see if Xcode yells at us because I don't remember offhand. Let's stop running this application so my computer fan doesn't get obnoxiously loud. So we're gonna say let layout equals UI collection view layout, and we want it to be a flow layout like so. Yeah, and it actually does let us set it, it looks like, which is great. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna say layout.delegate, if it exists, which it looks like it doesn't. Let me think. So it's the item size, that's what we want. Okay, perfect. So we're gonna say the item size is CG size. We're gonna say width, let's do 120 by 120. And let's come down here into our flow layout delegate implementation, and let's specify a function that's item size. And this is collection view, UI collection view layout, size for item at, and then like the index. So this requires us to provide a CG size back. So we're gonna return a CG size with a width of 120 and a height of 120. Now oftentimes this size is calculated by the device screen size or something like that, or maybe a square. So we're just going to do 120 for the sake of this video. But like we can see now, each of these cells has a width and a height of 120, which is exactly what we specified. Now we have this ugly looking margin between the cells. Well, I think it's ugly. You might not think it's ugly, but it's not exactly the most symmetrical, but we can specify all that in the layout as well, but I'll leave that out of this video, especially since I mentioned we're not going to be really fussing around with this too much. And there you have it. That's how you implement a collection view. Now let's run through this really fast like I mentioned. So we have our view controller, we have a collection view outlet, we've specified the delegate, data source, and registered our nib for the cell. We've also updated the layout so we can control the layout margin and size and such. We implement the delegate function here, which is just printing stuff for now. We have two data source functions. One is the number of cells, number of items rather we want, and one actually returns the cell by dequeuing it and casting it as this, which is our custom cell that we created. We configure it with an image. We added the image to our XE assets by dragging it in. Let's click into our cell. In this cell, we have an outlet for an image view because we have an image on our cell. We created this static nib function so we can easily pass it back when we want to register the nib. We created this configure function to make our life easier in terms of assigning the image to this. we have our actual, yeah, let's stop running this because this fan is getting annoying. We have our actual nib for the cell on which we have the image view, and we've connected this via the outlet. So if we right click this, we'll see that connection like so. And last but certainly not least, we have our storyboard, which has our collection view on it. And if we right click this, we can see that we've connected an outlet from the collection view outlet in our view controller to this collection view. And that does it. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, please hit that like button below. It helps the video and the channel a lot in general. Subscribe if you're new. I post on a daily basis Swift videos, tech, iOS, other software development. Thanks so much for watching again, and I'll see you in the next